Hello Canada, welcome back to another edition of the Canadian Citizen Journal. I'm your host, alias Tagai. I want to thank everybody out there for all of your patience. Yes, I'm back. I'm going to try and get on this daily. I'll probably end up missing a few days here and there as we kind of get Dad all figured out with all of the new health issues. And yes, everything's all good now, although we had the scare of our life. We just about lost him. Thank you all so much for all of the emails and heartfelt texts and comments that you all gave out and your prayers. I know for a fact deep down inside that they helped. Now, let's move on to kind of what's going on here today. Obviously, there's a lot going down. I've missed a fair amount of time. Everything's coming out in the wash. Doug Ford is a Liberal, which the West has been telling the East for the longest time. Ontario hasn't had a true Liberal or a true Conservative party in 30 years. In fact, you could say that pretty much everything east of Manitoba, and actually even Manitoba hasn't really had a Conservative government. So let's say everything east of Saskatchewan hasn't had a real Conservative government in 30 years. They're slowly dissolving and morphing into socialist liberalism, as the Liberal and NDP had been morphing into a hardcore socialist fascist ideology. And of course, now when you have the globalist elite involved, well, that changes everything, because it gives the money and the amount of propaganda needed, especially through huge organizations like the IMF and all of these other woke places that all of these billionaires make their money from, the ability to prop up these fake governments. Now, yeah, sure, they're a real government because you voted them in. Some people voted them in, but they only got voted in because of, well, propaganda. Now, we're seeing a full-out attack. And it's, of course, the biggest province getting hit right now is Alberta. And we're seeing this with the teachers. Now, the teachers don't give a shit about your kids. I've got a few that I've been communicating with. They want me just to kind of hold off right now because, to be honest, they're afraid. They're afraid to speak out. Because if they do, they're going to lose their jobs. And that's the lightest part of it. They're not only going to lose their jobs, but they will fear for every part of them. They fear for their own house. They fear for their own safety and their kids. That's how strong the leftist arm is that controls the teachers' union. The union in Alberta, the teachers' union, in fact, most unions across Canada are political weapons. They have completely fallen from grace. When a union can pick and choose which party it backs and is allowed to use, well, their own workers' money in order to prop up governments and smear others, that should be illegal. Because I can tell you right now, this happened in Saskatchewan with the iron workers and a few other unions. The unions were at the beginning ready to back the Liberals and the NDP. And there was enough people within those unions that they strong-armed them and said, no, you're not. So what did the unions do? The union says, well, we're just not going to back anybody. And that pissed off a pile of their workers. Because the majority of them out here, especially when it comes to blue collar, wanted them to promote and push conservatism. It showed the reality that unions are political weapons. Now, the teachers' union in Alberta is one of the worst. They don't care about your students. When you have a province that before any of this negotiation even took off was already spending records amount of money and was forced to because of this immigration that's being forced down people's throats, the immigration that is destroying our nation, they needed to start building schools. They needed to start spending money. When every province in the last 10 years has accumulated more debt than ever before, you can't necessarily blame the provincial leaders. It's because of the federal policies bankrupting our nation. Debt just keeps on falling upon debt. When you have a government who has such hardcore socialist ideas, shutting down any type of entrepreneurship within its nation, taxing the bejesus out of any corporations, which forces them to pick up and flee, the provinces aren't making any money either because businesses are running. They're escaping Canada. This leaves the provinces in a pile of debt, and them forcing to spend monies they don't have. And add the immigration and the rest of all of these bad policies that, like, especially the Liberal parties, they like taking things that are already provincial, claiming it as their own, raising the bar, spending huge amounts of dollars that the provinces are going, what are you doing? That's unsustainable. And then they walk away and say, well, we're not paying anymore. Now it's in your court. Like the daycare, like dental, like all the rest of these dumb programs that they brought in. Well, now the provinces have to pick up the tab. They throw it in there as a political knife, and it's the media goes around and stabs everybody with it. And this has become part of this whole political ideology. We have to completely forget all of this 10 years. We have to start from scratch. We have to erase the Trudeau 10 years, this Liberal Party 10 years. Now, we're going to dabble onto Trump. We're going to expose a whole bunch of stuff today, but I want you to listen once again to a real liberal. A real liberal. We're talking about a guy who was the president of the Liberal Party, who with a lot of the last few real remaining liberals fled when they saw the socialist fascist takeover, especially when you got a guy with an IQ of 87 like Trudeau taking power, and the media keeping him in his seat. He should never have even made it to the leader of the Liberal Party if the media did their job, let alone hold power for 10 years, causing us to be where we are today. And don't worry, his puppet master, Carney, he's just fulfilling what all of this was set out to do in the first place. Let's take a listen to the man himself, Ledrew.
This rant is about two once fabulous institutions in Canada who have failed Canada in the last 10 years. One, the mainstream news, and two, the Liberal Party of Canada. The evidence is in the book that came out from Catherine McKenna. You remember her, the Environment Minister. She spent $100,000 for pictures in Paris when she was over there with Trudeau 10 years ago. Loving pictures of the two of them, nose to nose, full of admiration. And her book came out, and, as Brian Lilly of The Sun said, it really says that Trudeau is shallow. There's no news there. He is shallow. I've known that for over 10 years. I've been saying that. And we have a worse country as a result of Mr. Trudeau's reign. But the interesting thing is, no one is saying those things about him until now, when he is out of power, which shows the strength of the Prime Minister, even a bad one, and the tools available to him to impact people's lives. Jody Wilson-Raybould, she's another fabulous minister, out. Selena Chavez, out. There are lots of ministers who are out. There's others who are not included. Military people who went to serve their country by being a member of Parliament. Trudeau doesn't like them because they knew what they were doing. So now we're hearing that Trudeau, well, we all know Trudeau's government was a failure, but now we're hearing people who were so close to him, so full of admiration for him, now saying that he is a shallow person, that he had no time for policy, that he had no time for anything but for images, things that many of us who know him knew at the time. So back to the failures. First of all, the mainstream media, paid for by Trudeau. He's the one that started giving money to the Toronto Star and CTV and Globe, all these other big media people, because they were in trouble, they couldn't adapt. Oh, I'll pay you money. But you don't bite the hand that feeds you. So there's a few really good journalists who did not bend, but others, particularly in the Toronto Star. What a fabulous man Justin Trudeau is. What a great job he's doing. The media failed Canadians by not letting them know that the government was in serious trouble and leading Canada down a very, very bad garden path. We know.
Now, I'm going to get back to his rant. Let's dive in to where we are today.
Have you had any contact with President Trump since Thursday?
I have not.
Given that President Trump said today on Air Force One, I don't know if you heard this, but in the last hour, he said he doesn't plan to meet with you for a long time. Is it worth continuing to pursue a discussion?
See his shifting eyes? Are you ready for the lie?
A meeting, a phone call with him at this point?
I didn't see the comment. Look, we stand ready to sit down with the United States, myself with the President, my colleagues with...
No, he isn't. He doesn't care about Canada.
What's your view on what Canada needs to do to get things back on track?
Canada lied. I mean, what they did was terrible. They made up a fake statement by President Reagan. Reagan was a big supporter of tariffs when needed, and we need tariffs for national security, and they totally turned it around because they're getting hurt by tariffs and we're gaining by tariffs. They've used tariffs on us when we had different presidents very successfully, and they've taken a lot of money out of our country, and now we're taking it all back. And so they went out and they made a fake commercial. The Reagan Foundation went crazy when they saw it because it was, the opposite. It was the opposite of what Ronald Reagan liked tariffs, and when necessary, he would use tariffs. And it's made us a very rich country. It's also made us, when they were used against us, it was not good for us. But we've used them very successfully. We have the highest stock market we've ever had. We have great national security. I've settled wars because of tariffs. And a president has the right to use tariffs, especially when it comes to national security. And we need it for national security, even including our own wealth and paying down debt and all of the other things. So, we're in very good shape on that. But they took a commercial saying the exact opposite, Canada. And so I'm very disappointed in Canada. They lied. I mean, it was a fraud what they did.
What can they do to get it back on track, though?
I don't know. I mean, I'm satisfied with the deal we have. We have a deal right now that's very good for us, and any deal that would have been made would have been better for them than the one they have right now. That's why I was surprised they did this. They did this to try and influence the Supreme Court, and many foreign countries aren't particularly happy, but they took advantage of us for years. For years and years they took advantage, and presidents shouldn't have allowed that to happen, but they did. So really, I don't think there's much they can do. I just assume leave it the way it is.
Will you meet with
if you leave it the way it is, it's very good for us.
Will you meet with Prime Minister Carney during this trip?
I don't have any intention of it, no.
What do you expect of your meeting with the new Japanese Prime?
Now, this is 2 days ago. In fact, his first comments about the 10% added on because of this whole ad campaign, the smear, was 3 days ago. So Carney literally lied right to your face. But you know what? There's people who are actually tracking the lies. I lost track of them. This man lies more than a cheap rug. He doesn't care about you. He cares about his investors. He cares about people who put him in the seat. He doesn't care about the everyday person. He's been in power over 6 months. He hasn't done a single thing. Not a single thing. He could have had shovels in the ground on more projects than a guy could shake a stick at. Like maybe getting our own oil and gas to the rest of Canada to cut off buying from the United States. But no. Let alone the fact that he could have already had pipelines going northeast and west to get our products to other markets so we could start to slow the taps down to the United States. But oh, no. What's he concerned about? Brookfield. He's concerned about his own investments, which we're going to dabble on. But first, let's just play a little wee bit more of, this crap.
As a follow-up, Prime Minister, given everything that we've seen, do you really think the United States is interested in making a trade deal with Canada?
Look, we are their second largest trading partner. We provide a series of essential goods for their economy. We are one of many providers, but we provide in some areas essential goods for their economy. And we create more room for them to do other things. I'll give you an example.
Now, he goes on and rabbles. I'm going to hit the propaganda because they asked the wrong question. They asked the question needed, kind of like what we saw happening when they were trying to hide Chrystia Freeland's Nazi grandfathers and the roots of her family. Fife himself. It seemed like a real hard question, and then you found out, guess what? It was all a setup. Previous episodes, people. I show all of it. Oh, this Fife. Ooh, he's a great reporter. No, he's not. They're all part of the machine. They've been lying to Canadians for generations. But now it's conglomerate. Now there isn't anybody left because Trudeau has consolidated all of the media underneath the Liberal wing. This person is evil.
To prevent hidden offshore. The former Brookfield chair, Prime Minister Mark Carney, has built a public reputation around transparency and responsible capitalism. What minimum disclosure standards should apply to public office holders to prevent hidden offshore holdings?
Well, I think the use of blind trust is not an appropriate method for dealing with that issue. And I think investments in assets should be fully disclosed for any public office holder to make sure that they are living up to the spirit of the law and paying tax along with other ordinary Canadian citizens who, in general, I assume their income is taxed from their payroll deductions, and there's less ability to use offshore bank accounts and advice from high-powered accountants and tax lawyers in order to avoid their obligations to fund domestic services in Canada.
You've said effectively that blind trusts don't work in this case for the purposes of the Conflict of Interest Act. So given that, what specifically would you suggest replace them? You know, for example, we've had witnesses who have supported the notion that divestment, which currently in the Act is either placing controlled assets in a blind trust or their liquidation, to only allow for assets to be sold and then for the proceeds to be placed into trust and then managed by a portfolio manager. Would that type of solution satisfy the lack of transparency or the ability to hide the details that you've suggested that it might?
Yes, I do think that approach deals with the issue. If you're liquidating the assets and then putting the proceeds into a blind trust, I think that sufficiently covers the problem there.
Just very quickly, would banning the use of tax havens by public office holders allow for more transparency for Canadians?
Yes, I think that would be an interesting idea to pursue.
On page 12 of your report, there is reference to Brookfield's tax gap over the last 5 years between 2017 and 2021. Just so that I'm clear on what a tax gap means, it is measuring the difference between taxes actually paid and taxes that would have been paid if the statutory Canadian tax rate had been applied to profits reaped. Do I have that right?
That is correct.
Okay. And according to your analysis, or the analysis cited in your report, Brookfield's tax gap in just 5 years between 2017 to 2021 was over $6.5 billion. Is that right?
That's correct, and that was based on research done by the Canadians for Tax Fairness and by some analysis from the Toronto Star as well.
So it would be fair to say that the extent of Brookfield's tax avoidance, taxes that it should have otherwise paid in Canada in just 5 years, was over $6.5 billion.
Yes, I mean, the tax gap is looking at the statutory rate, and there are some reasons why legitimate reasons why companies pay below that, but that's an indication of a major underpayment of taxes that, in the spirit of the law, should have been paid in Canada to finance public services in Canada.
Yeah, I'd say $6.5 billion is a lot of money. Would it be fair to say that Brookfield is Canada's largest tax dodger amongst corporations?
It has been labeled as such, and if it's not the largest, it's clearly in the very top tier.
Well, your report cites 123 of Canada's largest corporations, and it found that the largest tax gap for 2017 to 21 was none other than Brookfield, right?
Correct.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
This is why Carney hasn't got a deal. This is why Carney hasn't built anything for Canada or done anything for Canada. 97.8% of his investments are all down in the States. Right now he's making record profits. He's raked in, some economists have figured, already over $80 million since he's taken office. I've shown this on previous episodes. You can literally see where Trudeau put in the heat pump regulations, and Brookfield and Train, their stocks soared. You can link another bump previously before that where Carney did the same thing to England. They don't care about you people. Now you have the puppet master sitting in the master's seat. This is the general of the global elite climate scare. He's not going to do anything to make Canada in any way a powerful nation in order for us to do good as citizens. That's not what he wants. That's not what any of the Laurentian elite want. That's not what any of the global elite want. They want power. They want to keep us divided. They want to keep us on our knees, always wanting. Because if they ever allowed us to come together, to share information, all of this facade, all of this fake wall would crumble. Carney is the one who is not getting the deal. He is not just procrastinating. He is purposely manipulating the trade in order to benefit himself and his other investors. They don't care about you. They don't care. None of this has anything to do with Canada's sovereignty. None of this has anything to do with stopping our one-way trade and opening up Canada to the rest of the world. Again, previous episodes, under a barrel, people, or over a barrel. Trudeau was forcing us to become the 51st state. He was allowing this to happen. He wants this to happen. Let's move on a little bit further.
Donald Trump says he doesn't want to see you at all at APEC. Has the Canadian government given any consideration to the possibility that he doesn't want to negotiate? And do you have a contingency plan for that?
We have lots of, yes. The short answer is yes. To your follow-up, no, I'm not about to detail those contingency plans. But I will go to the big, obvious plan that is there in plain sight and will be further detailed in the budget on November 4th. And we have been saying this for months. I said this before I was elected. Emphasize the importance of us giving ourselves far more than any foreign government could take away, whatever the trading environment.
That's Trin. That's CBC. She's in cahoots. She's asking purposeful questions because we're going to see an election soon. More than likely, my gut's telling me we're going to see an election. They need to push this Trump hate bad man again because they really want to see the Liberals get a, yes, majority government. That way, they keep doing what they're doing, getting paid by Canadian tax dollars, and it will get signed in a bill, legislated, that forever and ever, CBC will be your puppet master. They will be the kings of propaganda, and there will be no stopping any other party who lubricates their palms or who they deem should be changing the hearts and minds of Canadians through misrepresentation, through lies, through what they do. This is their goal. There is no contingency, people. We are seeing the plan unroll as it was supposed to unroll. They were hoping to get a majority government and they didn't. That's the only change in plan. We are seeing the contingency plan. We are seeing them hammer on Poilievre for pointing out the truth. Yes, Trudeau should have been charged. Yes, Liberals, other MPs should have been charged. Yes, SNC should have been held accountable. Yes, there are a lot of hidden things that Canadians aren't aware of. Why? Propaganda. This is why I need you to like, share, and subscribe. People need to see the reality. We're going to scroll ahead a little bit.
Less than a month ago, you were at the White House. You seemed very cordial, friendly with President Trump. The two of you were joking. You said you were going to walk away with a good deal. He said that we would be very happy. Is the U.S. toying with Canada? And how did your relationship with Donald Trump go south so fast?
It's a question for him.
Next question. Yasmin? Yasmin Mehdi avec Radio-Canada.
That's propaganda, people. Do you see how she went silent? She could have rebutted right away. She didn't. She didn't. Why? Why? And why are you purposely throwing out a question where you're hiding the truth with a lie? You're taking it and twisting it to a Trump note, when in actuality, this guy dropped to his knees and licked Trump's boots. He doesn't care about Canada, people. He's making money hand over foot. He doesn't care.
In
recent weeks, we had the impression that the negotiations with the United States were moving ahead fairly well. What happened? Was it the ad, or was there something else on the U.S. side? Well, first of all, I acknowledge your description. We were making progress in those negotiations through detailed, constructive discussions, and particularly on steel, aluminum, and energy, and other sectors as well. And those discussions were not over, obviously. But we were close to an agreement. After that, there were the ads that ran, and everything changed.
Boom! Make conservatives look bad. Now you notice, this is in French. He does exactly like Justin did, just like the turd. Say it one way in French, say it another way in English. Propaganda, people. Propaganda. He threw Dougie under the bus. But don't worry. We're here to give you the truth. Sorry, so sorry. Just the facts.
So we achieved our goal, and now we put it on pause.
Have you talked to the Prime Minister about this, and what's? I mean, he was pretty measured in Malaysia today.
Sure.
About you and about this situation. But how are relations with the Prime Minister? Are things strained now because of what's happened?
Not at all. He saw the ad before I put it out, so did his chief of staff. They both saw it, and we moved forward on it. But again, we achieved our goal. As we say, mission accomplished. It was done. They're talking about it in the U.S., and they weren't talking about it before I put the ad on.
That's right. So all of Canada suffers because these two, working in cohort, best buddies, bosom buddies, are working together. Why? Why? To screw the deal even more? To screw Canadians even more? Propaganda is going to use this, people. They already are. They're in full swing right now using this. And they're not telling you the truth. The truth of the matter is, this guy is corrupt. He is a liberal. And not old liberal. He's the new school liberal, like the Wins. Yeah, do you remember her? Ooh, what she did to Ontario. Oh my God, it's going to take generations to pay off her debt. This guy is Win 2.0. There's no difference. The people have been lied to because of propaganda. This guy is... Every single thing points to the same corruption that we're seeing happen to the Liberals in the last 10 years, that we're seeing happen to the same Liberals today. They're invested in the States. I mean, when you're using your own retirement pension plans as a backstop to try and make it seem as though your country isn't bankrupt, monies that they know they can't use, or can they, or will they? Well, if they're using it as collateral against debt, do you think your pension is safe? Do you really? Why is it we're the only country that does this? Is your pension worth gambling? So for all those boomers out there, these lifelong liberals who aren't aware that the Liberal Party isn't the same, the new Liberal Party is actually the Conservative Party today. The Conservatives are pretty much the Liberals of 15 years and prior. Pretty much everything that they go off, everything they do is what the Liberals were doing 15 to 30 years ago. This new party that we're seeing, this is socialism. And the worst part is it's corporate socialism. These guys are all invested down in the States. They will use and abuse every single thing that they can get their hands on for power and money. And your pensions are on the line. The fact that your pensions aren't even invested in Canada, that they removed them in order for them to actually develop some type of wealth, and they took it out of the country that they were running, should be the first kind of hint that they're not working for Canada. If they were working for Canada, they would have confidence in what they were doing, that Canada would succeed. And we've done the exact opposite. We have the slowest GDP growth out of all of the nation, out of all civilized nations, G7 nations. People think about it, and actually it's the G20. We're at the bottom of the barrel. We were like seventh from the top of out of all country, out of every country on quality of life and living. We're down to 32nd. 32nd, people. All it took was 10 years. But the pensions say it all. Because they won't even invest their own pensions. In Canada, they pulled them out because they knew what they were doing to Canada. They knew what they were doing, just like Carney knows today. Carney knows exactly what he is doing. Nothing's changed, people. These people don't care about you.
Respect to Mr. Ford, I'm wondering whether you asked him to remove that ad? Did he harm Canada's efforts in relation to the U.S.? Well, it is the responsibility of the Canadian government to negotiate trading agreements and other foreign agreements. That's my first point. Second, we decided not to run any ads in the United States. That was a choice we made. It was clear that we were not going to do that.
Really? But yet Dougie and everybody was all, well.
Hi there. I have a couple questions for Minister Bethlen Falvey. It's Lorenda Redekop with CBC News. Ads fall under your ministry. With that government ad that has led to headlines around the world, did you keep the federal government in the loop before going ahead with that ad?
Oh, sure. There's lots of conversations between the Prime Minister and Premier Ford. They have a great relationship. As you heard last Thursday, the Premier reiterate that Premier Ford has 100% confidence in Prime Minister Carney. We're in this together. The ads were factually accurate, and of course we're best friends and allies and neighbors, and so the best thing that we can get, we need to get a deal, but we need to get a good deal, and the collaboration between the Prime Minister and the Premier will continue.
Okay, so before the ads went out, the feds were fully in the loop what that ad was about.
Well, I'd have to, that's my understanding, but you'll have to ask Premier Ford or Prime Minister Carney that question.
Thank you.
They were working together. They're bosom buddies. They're best pals, spending nights with each other at the cabin, drinking wine, living the high life, watching their stocks go up. Woo! In the meantime, our own sovereignty's at risk. We're watching our dollar plummet. Has anything been done? Is there a shovel in the ground? Nothing. Has he actually done anything for you? No. They need a majority government. And the media wants to make sure they crush the last army of conservatives left. It's not happening because we're leaving. Alberta's going to start. Saskatchewan is right on their heels. Quebec may actually beat everybody to it because these provinces see exactly what's going on. And then what happens today? A judge appointed by a Liberal minister just went against the Supreme Court's decision made 13 years ago and gave the election in Tyrone to the Liberals, even though there is undeniable evidence that that seat was lost and should be given to the Bloc. This is going to go to the Supreme Court. But this is how deep the corruption is, people. This judge went against a decision made 13 years ago. Appointed by who? David Lametti. You remember that schmuck? He's the one Trudeau used to replace Jody Wilson-Raybould. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, SNC-Lavalin gets a slap on the wrist, and everything gets buried. They're allowed to change their name, and now all of a sudden they're right in deep getting some of the largest contracts in Canadian history. Once again, the Laurentian elite making billions of dollars off of our taxes, going above and beyond to just waste your money and do whatever it takes to keep bad politicians in power. Not a word. Not a word. And here it is. This just went down today. Judge rejects request by Bloc Québécois for a new vote in Terrebonne. Yeah. So a Superior Court judge has rejected the Bloc Québécois' request for a new election in the Montreal area riding won by the Liberals on in April by a single vote. Natalie Sinclair Desganger, the Bloc candidate, had challenged the result in the Terrebonne riding after a Bloc voter revealed that her special ballot was returned to her because of an error in the address on the envelope provided by Elections Canada. The mistake was made by Elections Canada. In a ruling today, Justice Eric Dufour says the postal code error does not constitute an irregularity as defined under the federal election law. That is a lie. He literally just forfeited any type of belief or reality that he deserves to be in that chair. Because 13 years ago, a judge said, like as though they were reading what was going to happen in the future, that if something like this happens, you have to ensure that the people feel confident in the voting system and that every vote matters. So in the Defer says that the human administrative error was committed inadvertently and without any malicious or fraudulent intent and did not impact the integrity of the electoral system. It did, because the mistake was made by Elections Canada. The person who actually tried to get their ballot in, the mistake wasn't theirs. They could not have changed that in any which way without it becoming, well, literally fraudulent. So they did the right thing. It's the electoral system that made the mistake. The judge says expanding the definition of election irregularity to include administrative errors would open the doors to numerous contestations. Defer writes that annulling an election in a riding should only occur in the most serious cases. The Liberals run a minority government in the April general election, with Liberal Tatiana Augusta winning Terrebonne by 1 ballot. Now, this makes a big difference, because if the Bloc had this seat, all of a sudden that one seat's power becomes relevant, because if this vote, or I should say if this budget comes up, that one seat could make a difference between falling the government. Again, mainstream, silent on the true logistics about the power of one vote. There are also other 2, maybe 4, where this has kind of happened, but the evidence wasn't enough for them to really push forward with it. But we know mail-in ballots, people, don't use them. It's a scam. Whoever is working, if the controlling party like the Liberals, and you got to remember, the new Liberal Party, they're evil. They'll do anything. They don't care. They have no morality. This could very well have been done on purpose, and we won't know. Now, I'm just speaking hypothetically. I think it was done on purpose. Because if so, that person should have been coming forward, being put in the front of them and said, hey, I made a mistake. We have to count these ballots. But we're not seeing that, which gives me the feeling deep down inside, especially knowing history and how evil people can do things and what people will do to keep certain people and players in power. This is the type of law that you will break. You will purposely and maliciously do this type of thing to cause damage. This seat should be the Bloc's. This is Liberal appointed judges. This is why I've said many times, we have the technology today. We've had it for a long time. We have the ability that we shouldn't be appointing judges anymore. We can actually use all of their past sentences and decisions in order to see and pick who's a good judge and who's not a good judge. We're beyond this. We're beyond this totalitarian kind of the thought, this completely undemocratic way of putting people in power. And these are some of the most powerful positions on the planet. These people shape, well, look, they're giving away your land to the indigenous. So you own nothing. So at what point are we a serious nation? All because a judge, an appointed judge, said, no, you don't own that land. We're going to give it to the indigenous. If I mean, honestly, do you think 150, 200 years ago, if any other culture, Spain, do you think Spain would have signed any kind of deals? Do you really think? No, they wouldn't have. In fact, other indigenous nations have been decapping other indigenous nations for hundreds of years, thousands of years. And all of a sudden now, why would this decision even come out? This is because they're appointed. They have an agenda. They don't care about you. They don't care about Canada. They don't care. This is the last step. This is chaos. First fear, then hate, creating division, and then you add chaos. This divides people. This is what keeps these evil politicians in power. We have to stop this from happening. And we can, by first of all getting rid of, like, this judge. This judge should be fired immediately. In fact, when this goes to the Supreme Court, which it will, And hopefully something gets done, because we're going to have an election, and this shouldn't fall to the wayside, because if it does, this will be forgotten. This has to be dealt with. This judge needs to be pointed out on what judges shouldn't be doing and how they should be held accountable. And it needs a higher form of justice in order to do it. This person needs to be removed off of that seat immediately. Immediately. Now, let's get back to the reality of where Canada is.
Connected.
Yes.
Are you frustrated with how long it's taking, and do you feel cut out from the heart of the negotiation?
No, we play a critical role here in Canada. Ontario's the manufacturing powerhouse in the country, and when Ontario does well, so do all the other provinces and territories. I did have an opportunity to speak to almost every single premier. I think I have a couple in the territories I still have to reach out to. But my comments to them is, if you want to keep going, guys, that my champion Wob Canoe, he's 100% behind it. Another champion, Premier Eby as well. So these are the premiers, total different political stripes than I am, but we're all sticking together. And I went right across the country and spoke to every single premier.
Danielle Smith doesn't like the ads, though.
Well, sure enough. Yeah, well, of course, Danielle Smith doesn't like the ads because she's not getting her auto annihilated, her manufacturing, her steel, her life science sector. She has a commodity called oil that the Americans need and want. So she's going to be fine. Ontario won't be fine if.
Now, do you notice who he said? Wob Canoe. This guy is a complete buffoon. He's an absolute embarrassment. For the Indigenous like us, we just if you have any type of real belief in any type of your past, you know that this guy's a waste of skin. He's doing more harm than good, and all he cares about is he wants to be the leader of the NDP. And then you've got Eby, the most divisive, un-Canadian premier there is in Canada. Once again, I mean, this is the guy who started the whole theft of land from Canadians. This is the guy who literally is removing and causing any type of equality. Eby's a moron. And Eby's going to try and run some ads too. Like, people, they're doing this on purpose. Eby's the reason. The NDP and Liberals out in BC have already decimated the logging industry out there. There was hardly anything left. And now he's just finishing what he started. Why? Why? Think about it carefully. Does it help Canada? No. Does it help him? Yes. Does it help his sponsors? Yes. Does it help create fear, hate, and division? Yes. These people are all imbeciles. None of this makes any sense. To poke the bear south of the border, our largest trading partner. None of it makes any sense.
Thank you for being here today. I want to get straight to the headlines. Some big headlines. Trump calling off trade talks over the Ford government's ad campaign, of course, featuring Ronald Reagan. Now, when you first read Trump's comments on social media, what was your initial reaction?
Well, disappointment, obviously, because, of course, Mark Carney had promised that he would negotiate a win for Canada, that we would have a deal by July 21st of 2025, months ago. And, of course, still no win, still no deal, and Mr. Carney's elbows have gone missing. This has forced premiers to run their own campaigns to fill the void that Mark Carney's broken promise has left behind. And I'm thinking about the workers here in Windsor who are out of a job because of Carney's failings on trade. We have the highest unemployment anywhere in Canada of any big city is right here in Windsor, 11%. These are families who don't know how they're going to pay their bills, keep their homes. live their lives. And I want them to know that Conservatives are going to fight for them every day, fight for the auto sector, fight for our auto workers, fight for Windsor.
And you're talking about Ford kind of stepping in. He did respond to Trump's comments today, saying, Canada and the United States are friends, neighbors, allies. President Ronald Reagan knew that we are stronger together. God bless Canada. God bless the United States. You kind of mentioned it, but my question is, what role should provinces and territories play in shaping trade negotiations? Did Ford go too far in this case?
I think that what's happening is that premiers are filling the void that Mark Carney has left. I mean, he's broken every single promise he made about trade. Remember, he said, ignore 10 years of liberal housing crisis, the liberal crime crisis, liberal immigration crisis, the liberal cost of living crisis, and vote for me because I'm the only one who can, and I quote, handle Donald Trump. And here we are 7 months later, and he hasn't handled Trump. He's backed down again and again. American tariffs on Canadian industry have doubled since Mark Carney promised to eliminate those tariffs. So I think the responsibility rests with the national government and its head, and that's the Prime Minister. And Mark Carney has broken his promise. It has been a liberal bait and switch, and Canadian workers are paying the price.
As you said, this has been going on for months and months. Carney responding today that he's ready to negotiate again with the U.S. when they're ready. But is it too late?
Now, I give Poilievre credit here. See, this is good politics. The Conservatives know. The federal Conservatives, Alberta, Saskatchewan Conservatives all know who Dougie really is. They all know, because we watched during the election him purposely prop up the Liberals. So he's despised. I'm surprised that, to be honest, the federal Conservative Party hasn't come out and told him that they want their banner back. Like, I don't know. I'm going to have to look into the logistics of that. Maybe they can't, but there's a better Conservative Party there. Derek Sloan's part of it. And I'm hoping that he's building right now, trying to get enough people involved to actually have a real Conservative Party back in Ontario again. But he's being political. He didn't throw Dougie under the bus. He knows Dougie done wrong. Dougie does nothing right. He all he cares about is using the same tactics, fear, hate, and division. That's all he cares about in order to hold power.
It's never too late. We have to fight for our country. We need to reopen access to the American market, and that's what Conservatives are fighting for. But in the meantime, there's a lot of things we can do at home. For example, let's get rid of this crazy EV mandate that's already killing auto sector jobs. That is a self-inflicted liberal wound.
See? First thing he points out, this is Dougie and the Liberals' money-making scheme. This is why I was warning people months before the election. If you vote for Doug, if you vote for the Liberals, you literally are voting for the end of the auto industry in Canada. I showed evidence of the CEOs even coming out saying that this is preposterous. That literally you're going to shut down and make it illegal for us to produce combustion engines here? Are you aware of what you're doing to your own industry? And then you're going to force us to build a vehicle that isn't technologically ready, especially in an environment such as North America. We have some of the most extreme weather. You can't even drive half these ferries if they've got a broken antenna across a ferry. They're lighting everything up on fire. Houses are burning down everywhere. This is the reality. So instead of pointing out Dougie making a huge mistake, he throws the very first match into the kindling of what is Dougie's supposed fake Conservative Party, the EV mandate.
Banning the production of internal combustion engines. I mean, here in Windsor, people know better than anywhere that is ridiculous. And we should get rid of the industrial carbon tax that is rendering all of our industries, steel, aluminum, autos, uncompetitive. Get rid of that tax altogether. Cut tax on work, investment, home building, and energy so that we can unlock the power of our economy. And finally, with unemployment being so high, we have to get rid of the temporary foreign worker program that is displacing our young people who can't get jobs at the local Tim Hortons or Starbucks. Canadian jobs should go to Canadian workers.
No,
Exactly. Exactly. Now, listen carefully to Trump. This is during the same plane 2 days ago.
Talk about AI with President Xi.
Well, we're leading AI.
Do you know why he's leading in AI? Energy. A lot of it coming from Alberta. Cheap energy means businesses can come in because they can't get energy anywhere else cheaper, which brings their overhead down, brings their cost down. It's best for them and their business if they can get a better bang for their buck. In the meantime, Canada has some of the highest energy costs on the planet.
Leading China in AI. We're leading everybody in AI. We're doing very well. We have plants being built all over the country. We're going to have maybe $21 trillion by the time my first year's up. Nobody's ever had that. We've already hit $17 trillion.
$17 trillion, people. What has Canada done other than watch all of the big businesses, as well as thousands of small businesses have already fled. They've been fleeing for the last 5 to 7 years. They're leaving Canada. Carney's been in office long enough to already have a couple 100 miles of pipeline built. He's been in office long enough to give tax-free exemptions of huge magnitude in order to get these AI factories built in Canada, creating jobs. We have the best environment. I've been saying this for the longest time. We should have AI, like huge facilities on our most northern shores where it is cold for 70 to 80% of the year. Why? Well, cooling is the biggest expense. This is where the energy goes. You can even make it cheaper for these places. And if you're part of that whole green zealot nut bar belief system of carbon bad, you're not even using any resources to keep it cool. You just open the window. But no, because the taxes are too high. And then you have to pay people an exorbitant amount of money because half of their income gets stolen from them and given to the government. We have zero competitorship in us. We've literally completely removed any type of entrepreneurial heart in our nation. It's gone. It's all owned by the Laurentian elite. The fact that you can't even distill your own liquor should tell you something about here in Canada. Yeah, you need permits and licenses and all the rest of this. How bad is that? You can't sell your own milk. Everything is owned by the Laurentian elite. Everything is controlled by the rich. The largest gap between wealth has happened in the last 10 years. The fastest decline in human standards and living standards in the last 10 years. Suicide, all-time high. Homelessness, all-time high. Nobody can afford a home. It goes on and on. But Trump ain't done.
No country has ever hit numbers like that. That's investment into our country. We have auto factories open. You saw General Motors yesterday and Ford. They took a big leap forward because of tariffs, but they took a big leap. They went way up. We're respected again, really respected as a country, and a lot of that has to do with the tariffs. The tariffs are giving us national security and strength. Thank you very much.
Yes, both CEOs of the too big, the ones that are fleeing Canada and shutting down here, are thanking Trump. They're doing news presses around because their stocks are at record highs. Why? Because people were watching this forced EV thing scared crapless. How do you compete when you've got China next door flooding all of Europe with their cheap EVs? How can you even compete against that? A place that has zero human rights. They needed to take control. They needed to stop this EV mandate. They needed for true entrepreneurship to keep going. This is what makes the United States a superpower. They have a system that allows anybody to go down there if you've got a good idea, the freedom to compete to bring your ideas to market and to flourish. The exact opposite is occurring here in Canada. In the meantime, this is Canada.
To some other news this morning, a concerning new report from Food Banks Canada says increased levels of poverty and hunger are becoming normalized in this country. Food bank visits continue to rise across Canada, reaching nearly 2.2 monthly visits. That's double the number from 2019. CTV's Scott Hurst is on that story for us this morning, and he is with me now. Scott, this is a really concerning report that is showing no signs of things changing direction.
Marcia, some staggering numbers coming from this latest Food Banks Canada report. It shows visits to food banks continuing to increase, and that is a significant increase over last year, up 5% from just last year. But as you mentioned, doubling since 2019, and that includes every single province and territory, seeing soaring demand over the last several years. No region has been spared, and as you...
Why? Like I said earlier, it's because of the federal government. So all of you people who are all in these provinces and you're all freaking out and losing it, you know what? I'm not going to throw Dougie's part of the problem. But all of these other provinces are carrying these huge debts because of the federal government. You want to know why programs are strained? Try and add 20% of your population in 9 years and see how it strains your system when you got a government that's bankrupting your nation and giving you no money and stopping businesses, stopping any type of growth. You have to remove the federal government first. You need to expose them for what they are. We need heads to roll. We need charges. We need to stop this from ever happening again. History people, those who forget the past are condemned to repeat it. Now, I'm going to go a little bit further here. Listen carefully.
Top advisor said the ad was just an excuse, that there's been months of frustration, and he specifically said there's still too many Trudeau antics from the Canadian side. What do you react to that?
So much for the new Liberal Party under Carney. This is exactly what the U.S. administration is saying, because they know what I know and what a lot of other independents know. It's the same government, people. It's the exact same people. You were convinced, you were propagandized into believing that something was changed. That for some reason this party, who in 10 years has completely crushed our country, is different with Mark Carney?
Well, Brian, I guess you answered the question, what they've all been asking me, and I just finished saying, it's not about the ad, it's about finding every excuse in the world not to get a deal.
That is a liberal. He's just trying to defend his own 10 years of bad, horrible leadership. I don't think it's 10 years now, whatever he's at 8. It's irrelevant. He's a liberal. He's Trudeau's buddy. Him and Freeland have barbecues together. And now Carney and him sit down by the evening watching their stocks go up while Canada slowly dies. They don't care about you. They don't care.
And Trump terminated trade negotiations with Canada. Have you spoken with Foreign Minister Anand? What can Canada do to resume these?
Well, I think what happened is one of the leaders in Canada was running ads in the United States on tariffs that took President Reagan's words out of context. Even the Reagan Foundation criticized him for it. But I have not spoken. I've been traveling since yesterday. I have not spoken to the foreign minister since then. But I mean, the president made his announcement that he's suspended any trade talks with Canada for now.
You said the president was frustrated, but is this just a knee-jerk reaction?
I think the frustration has built up over time. I've been involved in some of these negotiations, and the Canadians have been very difficult to negotiate with. And you look at all the countries around the world that we've made deals with, and the fact that we're now negotiating with Mexico separately reveals that it's not just about one ad, that there's frustration that's built up.
And is he planning to speak with the Prime Minister Carney when they're both in Asia this week? Because this ad had nothing to do with Carney's government.
I don't have any information on that.
What it has been so challenging about dealing with Canada in trade negotiations?
I guess the lack of flexibility, and also I would guess that leftover behaviors from like the Trudeau folks that can be very frustrating for people who are negotiating.
On this ad that President Trump was referring to up in Canada and Ronald Reagan, have you seen the ad, sir, yourself?
I'm not going to talk about that.
It's the same party, people. Nothing's changed. Nothing's changed. This is... Mark Carney has been telling the Trudeau Liberals what to do for 10 years. He's been working in the shadows, in the dark. He tried doing it in Britain and they gave him the boot. And now Britain's still trying to clean up their mess. In the meantime, our propaganda is so powerful here that it's so hard for any Canadian to find the truth. Please like, share, and subscribe. Get the word out. People need to see this. They need to understand what's really going on. Now, let's get back to a real liberal. A real liberal.
Know that now. Just trying to dig out from all those problems of Trudeau. The other institution, and it used to be a fabulous institution, was the Liberal Party of Canada. It's not an institution anymore. It's not a party anymore. It is, as Mr. Trudeau said, a movement where people can join. No money around. No, you don't have to pay anything. Just say that you love me and you can be a liberal. What hogwash. And the Liberal Party stood by while this happened. So those are two institutions who are no longer really held in high esteem in anybody's. But we can build them back. Independent media, independent analysis. Let's have some debate about this country instead of following somebody because of socks and because of hair. 3 minutes.
Thank you, LeDrew. He is absolutely correct. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. It's just a shocking reality of where we are today and what we need to do to stop it. This is what we need to do. I need your help, just like Canadians need to hear what we're saying. Just the truth. Sorry, so sorry. Just the facts. If they see the truth, if they have the ability to get the facts, because I post everything in my description, they'll actually be able to sit back and have an educated vote and be aware of what's really going on in Canada. Until next time, guys, I hope you enjoyed the show. Hey, man, hopefully I'm back. Let's see how things go. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. If you are, please punch that notification bell. It not only helps me grow the channel, it helps break the algorithms that I am constantly under from, guess what? As LeDrew said it, the censorship that controls the propaganda of what Canadians can see, hear, and have access to. It's up to you. I'm Alias Guy. You've been watching the Canadian Citizen Journal. Stay informed.